John Leslie Montgomery, better known as Wes Montgomery, was a jazz musician from Indianapolis, Indiana. He was from a big family, two older brothers, Thomas and Monk, a younger brother, Buddy, and a younger sister, Irvina. However, his parents split up when the children were young. Thomas, Wes, and Monk moved to Ohio with their father. Monk would jump out of school to work full-time selling coal and ice, but he would take his earnings to buy Wes a guitar from a pawn shop. That guitar would change Wes' life forever. Before he was 20 years old, he had already been playing in clubs and traveling to different cities to play. Throughout his short life, he would become influential in jazz, bringing the first change of guitar style in decades with the thumb-plucking style he became famous for. Wes Montgomery is born March 6, 1923 in Indianapolis. His parents were Thomas Montgomery Sr. and Frances Blackman. Funny enough, the two lived close by in Georgia before independently moving to Indianapolis, with both settling in Hallville. They met again working at a foundry. In 1918, they got married and started a family soon after, but they would split. Frances would eventually marry Lefester Arrington. In 1939, Thomas Sr. would move to Ohio with Thomas Jr., Buddy, and Wes. In 1939, Thomas Jr. would pass away at the age of 16. The boys would find their way back to Indianapolis by the end of 1940. In 1943, Wes would marry Serene Miles. They would live in a duplex, and this is said to be the time when Wes developed his style of playing by plucking with his thumb. He'd also switch to a 6-string electric guitar. This was done so he wouldn't disturb his children or the neighbors he shared a wall with. In 1947, they would move, but this time they'd add Wes's siblings Buddy and Irvina to the household, as well as his mother Frances, until she passed in 1950. Wes was 19 when he got married in 1943. It was also the first time he would begin making club appearances. Working as a welder during the day, he would play in various clubs such as the 440 Club on Indiana Avenue. In 1946, he toured Indianapolis with Millard Lee, whose band was famous for working with the all-American brown-skinned models. In 1948, he began touring with Lionel Hampton and his band. Wes, however, was afraid of heights, and while the rest of the band flew, he would just drive between cities. He's making a living touring, playing jazz professionally at this point. While Wes is out touring the country, his brothers have decided to take a shot at making it as professional jazz players as well. William Howard Montgomery, better known as Monk, is the oldest of the Montgomery brothers and the first to take off on a solo career in jazz playing bass guitar. But at 30, he would learn the double bass because he saw someone in a band with Wes. He's actually pretty well known for being one of the first persons to play an electric bass in jazz, starting around 1952. In 1953, he's credited as unofficially being the first person to play it on a recording. He also played with his thumb similar to his brother Wes. The crazy thing is, he would play local shows, but never took it as a career option until he saw Wes do it. Then at 30, he made it his full-time job, touring Europe, working with Quincy Jones, Dizzy Gillespie, and founding several worldwide organizations to teach and push jazz forward. He put together the first American jazz band to play in South Africa. They can be heard on Monk Montgomery in Africa Live. Unfortunately, at the time of his death, he hadn't yet finished the plans for what he was calling the World Jazz Festival. Considering he didn't start his professional career until 30, I think it's fitting that his first solo album was called It's Never Too Late, because it's never too late to make a change. Charles Montgomery, better known as Buddy, was the youngest of the Montgomery brothers, born in 1930. Like his brothers, he also played jazz professionally, specializing in piano and the vibraphone. He played alongside Big Joe Turner and Slide Hampton before joining his brother Monk in a group called the Master Sounds, which found success. Of course, more success came with the Montgomery brothers. He also got to play alongside Miles Davis. While Wes Montgomery and Monk Montgomery have been written about extensively, Buddy kinda gets left out. For my reading, it seems more like he just valued his privacy. He's extremely talented and is credited with arranging most of the tracks the brothers did together and released as the Montgomery Brothers, as well as the Montgomery Johnson Quartet. That isn't to say he doesn't have great solo work as well, my favorite being the 1987 album, Ties of Love. But he also had a love of education, focusing much of his later career as an advocate and educator for jazz, hosting seminars, teaching classes, even holding free concerts all the way up until his death. In 1958, the Master Sounds group that featured Monk and Buddy had broken up. During the Monterey Jazz Festival, all three Montgomery brothers are booked to perform together. They were hidden. Wes fills in as a sideman for the remaining Master Sounds tracks for the album Kismet, so that it can be released later that year. The trio then records 7 albums together over the next 3 years. In 1959, the Indianapolis Recorder, one of the oldest black newspapers in the United States, made note that the trio of the Montgomery Brothers had started performing new music every night at a place called the Turf Club. Of course, people wanted to see them. Now, despite having 3 black men performing every night, something crazy happened in February of 1960. Mildred Thompson, the owner of the Turf Club, is arrested while the Montgomery Brothers are playing because she refuses to see the black party. Her logic is, it's just bad for business. In March, she's arrested again without the Montgomery Brothers soundtrack because, according to her, we prefer to not serve Negroes here. On April 9th of that year, the Indianapolis Recorder states, management of the Turf Club has made its position unmistakably clear. Already adamant in its refusal to accord equal service to Negro patrons, the management reacted to weekend pickets at the establishment at the 16th and Lafayette Road by unfurling a Confederate flag. Charges were dropped against Thompson because she can't be racist if she hires black musicians, I guess. Wes Montgomery obviously never went back. However, Buddy and Monk played there again in August of 1968. Sort of a going away present because it had become a pizza place at this point. Eventually, it would become a go-go club, and it's now the home of the Sunset Strip. Around 1958, Wes starts doing some solo shows at an after-hour spot called the Missile Room. It's right across the street from the Madam Walker Theater on Indiana Avenue. Riverside Records producer Orrin Keepnews is in the crowd at one of those shows. He's a fan instantly and goes to work trying to get his label to sign him. In 1959, they get the deal done, and Wes drops an album the same year. Despite not featuring Monk or Buddy, the album is called the Wes Montgomery Trio because it features Wes' unique guitar sound, but also an organ and drums, which is an odd combo the label called Dynamic New Sound. He drops 10 albums with Riverside and works with artists such as Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, Cootie Williams, and Billie Holiday. In 1961, the Montgomery Brothers breaks up as a band. Monk and Buddy both head to California independently. In 1963, he signs a new contract with Verve Records. They want to change Wes. They pair him up with producer Creed Taylor. The first album they do is called Movin Wes, and it gets mixed to good reviews. It's a little different from what he was known for. It's still jazz, but a little more poppy. The thing is, the album sells 100,000 records, and that might not seem big right now, but if you sold 100,000 records in 1964, that's a big deal. He's a crossover star now. That lets him do things like perform on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. In 1967, Wes is known worldwide. He's touring constantly. From May 28th to June 5th of 1968, he's performed for sold-out shows in Phoenix, Arizona, finishing up a tour. He returns home to Indianapolis after that to relax because he's got a busy summer planned out. On June 15th, he wakes up and he's not feeling well. He collapses at home and is rushed to Methodist Hospital. At 10:40 a.m. that same day, he's pronounced dead due to a heart attack. Justin Scott has this theory of the geographic lottery, where you can be super talented, but if you're not born in major cities like New York, LA, Chicago, or Houston, then you get overlooked. People don't consider there are large fan bases in these cities. People with immense talent never reach the success they should because their cities aren't acknowledged by people within the industry. The only way to overcome that is to be incredibly good at what you do. Wes Montgomery did that. Not only that, he revolutionized the style of guitar playing in jazz. Nobody was playing guitar with their thumbs until Wes did it. Now we see it every day. When you think about jazz, you don't think Indianapolis. But Wes Montgomery was called back here time and time again, no matter how many times he left. Despite spending most of his life there, he had a nationally known name. Yes, artists like Stevie Wonder and George Benson paid tribute to Wes, but Bob James, David Becker, Lee Ritenour, and Emily Remler are not names you would have considered to love the music of a man who played during segregation. Yet when he died, over 2,000 people, black, white, Latino, all different races, flooded the streets for his funeral. Jimmy Smith was an organist who collaborated with Wes on dozens of occasions. Most notably, they had 2 albums together in 1966, Jimmy and Wes, the Dynamic Duo, and Further Adventures of Jimmy and Wes. Jimmy once said, "Jazz is the only real music that's gonna last. All the other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow, but jazz was, is, and always will be." All the clubs that Wes played in and most of the homes he lived in are gone. The I-65 and I-70 highways ran through a lot of black history in Indianapolis, including that of Madam C.J. Walker, Dr. Samuel Elbert, George T. Knox, and most certainly Wes Montgomery. Some of that history was erased even before his death, but we still have the music, and that's what's important.